Hello chaps, so back for another Wednesday waffle. I've just spotted some dirt on the lens, so we're going to have to deal with that right now. Right, so I thought I would start off by doing a little bit on boomer life after World War II, because that generation will die out eventually, and it's probably cool to just share some of what my dad told me. I'm not trying to claim I was around because I wasn't. But my old man was born in 47 up in Cumbria, my second home, and I just thought I'd tell a bit about his childhood growing up. Nothing that incredible, but you might relate to it if you're from a similar sort of area or similar time period. So basically, in those days, working class people, they were poor family, hard working. Let's just skip to the interesting stuff. So, first of all, no one played games. Yeah, my channel would not have existed back then, or it would just be pictures of me chasing squirrels up trees and things like that, because there was no like technology entertainment. Even all they had was a wireless. They had a wireless. Didn't have a TV, didn't have a car. Rich people had cars. Semi-rich or canny people had TVs. That was it. Or you get one from radio rentals. Although that might have even been later, to be honest. Motor cars, not many. I think, as I said, my dad was a working class lad from Workington. My granddad, we used to call granddad. That's how you say northern grandma, granddad. Used to, he was got TB, so he only had one lung for most of his life. So my gran pretty much worked herself to death, looking after him. And unfortunately, they're long gone now, which, it is sad. Obviously I've dealt with it years ago, but sometimes you just wish you had a bit more time, but that's life, I guess. But you used to go up there, and my dad, even though he was sick, he used to still bust a gut, go out. He was repairing things at one stage. He used to do all sorts, like handyman type stuff. And it's we're good times, really, And my dad used to go around. They used to wear short trousers, little woolen waistcoat, little dirty faces. Wasn't me, sort of thing. I've seen all little pictures and that of him in air cadets rather. And it kind of sounds fun in a way compared to today. If you want to go roaming the countryside with a shotgun, you have to do it in a game. In those days, you could do it, believe it or not. Gun laws were pretty lax, and the kids would just take a gun off a farmer, and of course they're not going to shoot people. They shoot crows or just put some bottles up. Crows are okay to shoot because the farmer considers them pests. Well, they are pests, and they're still a grain. But he used to go around and shoot that. Then he'd go off on his bike. They used to cycle, like, I don't know, almost 20 miles in one day. I couldn't believe it. I said, you cycle that on the weekend? And he said, yeah. They were all fit. They were all dead fit. They was fit as a butcher's dog. There was still ration cards in those days as well. So You know, his mum used to go and stand in line, and you know, you remember him saying he used to have rabbit stew sometimes when they couldn't afford lamb or pork or beef. But his mum would say it was beef or it was lamb. She wouldn't say it was rabbit, but the rabbit was like a full back meat. So really, compared to today, where most people who have problems, they can maybe just about get benefits if they've still got themselves together. In those days, you know, people actually had to work really hard in dire situations sometimes. Crazy to think that was just like 50, 60 years ago. 70, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I used to work in Salterbeck. Used to live in Salterbeck as a lad. Go on shore, get some smush. Used to collect smush. He said he knew a lad that used to collect extra smush and go and sell it. A bit like the Daily Record, they used to get stories of the Bruins and Woolly. In those stories, the young lads are always running errands in their little cardigans and flat caps and that. And that's how it was in those days. They could do the neighbour's lawn, get some money for that, you know, and it was always like halfpenny, tenner, shilling. You know, I don't have a clue what any of that means, but my dad, you know, one of those was like, ooh, you know, because dirt poor, money was not anywhere near as like inflated now. I mean, you could probably get a bag of sweets for a penny in those days. Could you get that now? Don't think so. Not unless old Guvraj down at the corner shop there's going a bit crazy or giving a free giveaway. But you know, it was interesting times. Used to steal birds' eggs, which of course I wouldn't recommend. He said it was wrong afterwards, but in those days some boys, they would steal and collect birds' eggs. Just, you know, and they used to make their own entertainment. So my dad actually had a machete as well as a shotgun, air rifle and all the rest. We go out machete in the woods and just slash through all the trees, just enjoying that. People were relaxed because they knew the kids wouldn't dream of using those weapons, you know, on a human being. It just wouldn't happen. So things were more relaxed. Well, it should be, really. Don't care what people think. I think it's better. Anyway, bows and arrows, spears. He said one time he threw a spear, hit a lad in the head. He obviously wasn't looking. The lad went screaming home to his parents and they had to rush him to the hospital. But that's what you get because they're playing with these pointy objects and they're a bit young and foolish. Yeah, on bottom field, you used to call it. And they play bows and arrows. He said once he was with his mate Tommy from next road, and they had machetes chopping on trees and stuff, climbing trees, and he said his machete went through a lad's finger and it was just hanging by a thread. So you'd think, right, hospital. Nah, there was a guy with a little brown holdall, doctor, who lived in the next row. They just went to his house, knocked on his door. He said, "Oh, bloody hell, what you done, lad?" And he'd take him in and sew it back up, and that was it. The doctor sewed it back up. He didn't even charge for it. It's just in those days, you know, you got that sense of community. I'm sure it probably still does exist to an extent in Workington now, you know, but and other things that are nice about it, you know. I definitely miss my games, but we'll see. But what other things could I say? I used to work on a farm in summer. They have muck fight where you're throwing basically cow shit at each other. Yeah, just roaming around like kids in those days. Used to go to a school in Workington or somewhere around there called Guard Street, and there was a head teacher called Killer something, Cameron Caldwell. It sounded like Cameron. I'm not sure. Some people might remember Guard Street School. It's long gone now. But he said if he missed, because I'm more of a good boy, you know. My dad was a bit of a rebel, and so if you're naughty in them days, you get the cane, you know. And there's one guy, the killer thingy, Scottish guy, apparently used to hit really hard, and everyone was frightened of him. You know, and apparently Guard Street was a tough school. You'd have fights, scraps with other lads and stuff. You know, men were a bit more masculine in those days. We're talking young lads, but they'd scrap. But he'd always just be with fists, you know. Come on then, old chap. Be with fists. It wouldn't be with like shooters or whatever, you know. It was you'd have a scrap and someone would win and that'd be it. But it did happen a bit more, because lads would, if they were sat on a wall, they'd say, oh, this is our den, this is our gate, you're not coming through, just because they wanted a little scrap, you know. And you know, but it was never anything like what you get now with all whatever. It's very sad what's happening now with all the fucking pillocks, but oh boy. Didn't go down right. So that was boomer life back then. Very poor. Used to have a meter. I tell you a funny story. My grandfather was a practical joker. He did a ton of funny tricks and stuff. You know, he knew all the little tricks. He'd say, "Here, son, have you seen this, Jack?" He used to call me Jack, like I've been a bad Jack. Jack, have you been bad, Jack? I'll show you a trick, Jack. And he'd show me like a penny in the bag, paper bag, and all that sort of silly tricks. But obviously they're difficult to see. You know, there's that one, and you know, when you're a kid, you're like, what the fuck? What was that? Wow. But yeah, and just stories and funny stories. He'd tell stories that were, but he'd leave all the X-rated stuff in, and my grandma would come from kitchen with a rolled up newspaper and stop telling the kids. I used to sat there with my brother and sister drinking chocolate milk. Good memories, man. I've still got all the soldiers from the little toy box. Went up there recently and they've been preserved, you know. So some of my possessions from when I was a kid, you know. Yeah, I lived in South most of my life. Obviously, that's why I haven't got much of an accent. I can do both. I understand Northern people. That's something I like. The fact that I understand them, they're generally good-humoured. You know, I understand how they think. So it's not like I'm lost if I go up there. We still got regular. God willing, we'll get up one more time, 2 more times soon. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, and they had meters in those days, and obviously everyone who used to dirt poor, sometimes they put foreign coins in there or whatever. It would click and you'd get your heating back, but then you had to pay for them when the man came to collect. One funny story, my grandfather, who was a practical joker, a proper practical joker, not like people now probably wouldn't dare, but he found out that in the tenements, the house they're in, there was like a shared loft or shared sort of back part of the housing behind on the first floor. It was like with all the meter and the heating and pipes down it, and he figured out one of the pipes, there was like a derelict pipe that went through to the next door. And if you went up to it and went, hello, down it, it would travel to next door. So he'd wait till they were all in bed, and then he'd go up to the pipe and he'd go, ooh, ooh, like a ghost noise. And next day they'd come out and my dad's mum would be at the fence, and she'd say, next door would say, oh, Oh, there was something in our room last night, and instead of telling them, he'd be sat in the stoop like this, going sniggering away. So yeah, such good times. You know, I still like going up there. Of course, I'm a bit of a softy southerner, so I better watch myself. But I can handle myself. You know, I like a bit of boxing. Body sparring. If you're bigger than me, then we'll just do body sparring. That's good. But yeah, there's like all this boomer life. I might as well put it out there because yeah, it's how it was back in them days. Used to go to an old shop called Ben Shaw's. Used to get lead soldiers. That was before the lead soldiers were banned. There was a place on Allenby Shore, not Allenby, Salterbeck, called German Tunnel, where the Germans in I was thinking World War Two, but it's actually World War One, I think. Yeah, the prisoners, they were put as labourers. They built this big tunnel on the shore in like Salterbeck or Harrington, somewhere around there. I don't know why. Maybe just give them something to do, but there must have been a reason. But yeah, and the steelworks, the slag bank, you know, slag meaning waste material from the steelworks. That shutting and all the men in that town losing their jobs was a tough time. Didn't affect my dad really. He'd gone to art college in Carlisle at that point. That's why we lived down south, because my dad's brothers were all three of them, I think, were in the building trade. It was one of them something a bit different, but mostly builders. My cousins, my dad's brothers, builders, surveyors. Obviously got promoted over the years. But he was a bit different, like the art stuff, and worked with a few people like Kevin Keegan, David Jason, Ray Winston. Who else did he meet? He met a few people. Obviously, they do. He used to work at the highest level of advertising. Actually, he did very, very well for himself, coming from that background. And I'm thankful because me, obviously, and my siblings have all gone on good holidays because of it. So salute, Dad. But yeah, that's a bit about boomer life, I thought. So just put it out there. If you live in Cumbria, you know, I love going up there. My uncles and aunts, they say, "How you doing, Jack? How you doing? What you doing down south, Jack?" They say, "Ooh, I'm watching you, lad. No funny business round me, lad." Ooh. And yeah, all smoking. They all still smoke pipes. You know, my granddad used to smoke pipes. He sat there puffing away in his armchair, and belief in a pipe, yummy. I'm not really a smoker, but I understand. Bit of tobacco's nice smell in it. Anyway, I think that probably is it. There's probably some stuff I forgot, but I just thought I'd put it out there. Oh yeah, the bikes were called bone shakers. They were put together from old bits of bike. Couldn't afford a proper bike. Only present he got on his birthday one year was a book called Buffalo Bill, with pictures. Oh yeah, and he went to the pictures. In those days, the pictures were either cowboy serials, like Tom Mix type thing, the Lone Ranger as well. But his favourite, I think, was Little Rascals. But we're talking black and white Little Rascals years ago. There's some funny clips of it on side where they get a little lamp and they're rubbing it. Hey, I wish I was a monkey. I wish I was a monkey. Anyway, you would think I'm a nutter, but you go and watch the clips of old Little Rascals. Used to got pictures, and that was like a treat. You know, they send. I think probably my dad's mum just sent them there to get them out of their hair. There were, you know, my dad's quite a big family, lots of siblings. Because people used to die in those days. You know, didn't have modern technology to keep kids alive if they got sick as much. I think you'd probably be alright, but it was a little bit of that kind of Victorian harshness still. Anyway, I think that's it. I think I'll do there. My dad's obviously his biggest films that he loves the most are cowboy films. He likes The Searchers, Jeremiah Johnson, Outlaw Josie Wales, Lonesome Dove, which is what his favourite series, and the spaghetti westerns, Good, Bad and the Ugly, and all the other ones, which I like as well. Anyway, cheers guys. So that was Boomer Life in Cumbria, in Workington, a few years ago. My old dad, John, and yeah, also he got to shoot 303s in Air Cadets and fly mosquitoes, which sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest. 303 rifle, quite a hefty rifle, mate. Anyway, cheers guys. Ta.